Hey guys, Dave and Len here. This is Wargame Chat. Today we're going to talk about ways to get new people into the hobby. And what I mean by that, by the hobby, I mean hex and shit wargaming or miniatures wargaming. I think the first thing is the hex and shit publishers, they need to start coming out with games that are suitable for beginners. I mean, there's a few out there, but most of the games that are being produced are for like experienced wargamers. They're meant for people who've been playing war games the last 20 years and stuff. Someone new, if they read the rule book, would be completely lost unless they happen to know a veteran wargamer who could help them. So the publishers really got to get on the ball and start putting out some stuff with really simple rules, just to introduce people to kind of like standard war game rules, as I would call them. What would be your first idea, something to get more people into the hobby?
Okay, we're trying to get people into hex
and shits, wargaming or miniature wargaming.
Miniatures, and there's a lot of people out there, they're on their computer. There's computer war games, there's those multi-user computer games, there's reenactors. One thing, last time I was at the 7 Years War Association convention, there were reenactors who never heard about war games. There was one guy who ran a museum who never heard about it, and they both said, well, you know, this would be great. Mm-hmm. And what it is that people getting more familiar with it, because I was thinking with now stuff like YouTube and the internet, there's more of a chance for people to casually find out about this. And also, we have to emphasize the advantages that board games and miniatures would have over computer stuff. You know, maybe it's just, you know, you play with a group of friends, you have fun painting, you get to move lead figures, which is a thrill in itself. Mm-hmm. And there's a whole backlog, and nowadays you could probably get a war game in practically every battle in history. Mm-hmm. So it's just like, how are you going to tell people about this?
One thing I think that needs to be done more is, I go to about 5 conventions a year at least, sometimes more, and they're all war game miniature conventions. There's none that are just hex and shit conventions. RockCon has a small section where people play hex and shit games, but that's it. And I mean, state of Illinois has got millions of people, and there's not one hex and shit only convention. So some of the publishers out there are doing something about it. Like Compass Games, as far as I know, they hold the Compass Games Expo every year, which is a hex and shit convention. I think each of these manufacturers need to put on their own con once a year in their own local area, and I think that would help out a lot. I mean, the first year you may only get like 30 people, but once the word gets out, you'll probably get a few hundred every year. But remember, the point of a manufacturer putting on a convention is not to make money, but to get people in the hobby, which eventually will make them money. So I think we need a lot more conventions.
Do we have still things have like Origins or Historicon?
Well, yeah, Historicon exists, Origins still exists, but I'm talking about stuff like just in our area. I mean, we're in a state with, what was there, about 15 million people in this state, and there's not one hex and shit wargaming convention ever in this state. So, I mean, if a state with this many people isn't having a convention like that, it's doubtful that very many of the smaller states are having a hex and shit convention either. So,
well, there is one rule of thumb we had, because Little Wars, I remember decades ago, had both board games and miniatures. But it eventually became miniatures almost exclusively because, well, when you paint up a whole big miniature army, you really want to put them out there. And also, you know, people are looking and say, oh, crap, this looks good, you know. And the rule of thumb we had is that miniatures for conventions and board games for what you did on weekends or weekdays. So
right, yeah, I get that, but I mean that doesn't help the situation.
Yeah. And the problem is also actually with hobby shops, but there's not many hobby shops.
That's a shame. I remember when I was a kid, there's plenty of hobby shops, and now I know of about 2 of them. That's about it. There used to be one called Stanton Hobbies. They carried everything from Avalon Hill war games to models to model railroad stuff to remote control planes and remote control cars and stuff. Those type of stores, I don't know of any like that anymore. in the state of Illinois. There's one or two stores I know of that just do like mono railroad stuff, and I think there's another one that does just die-cast cars and vehicles and stuff. But yeah, the old traditional hobby shops unfortunately are gone, which is really a shame. I mean, if you want to build models or something, I don't know where to tell you to even get a model. I mean, the only place you can go is go online and buy the model there. There's really no store. You can go in and say, hey, I want to get a 172 A10 Warthog or a 148 M1 tank. I don't know of any store in Illinois where you can do that.
Well, one thing I was thinking, a lot of, especially military history museums, should have their own Wargame club.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm surprised they haven't picked up, because I was thinking there might be problems with the public libraries. Some people in the general public may complain, or the park district, because I remember we had one Wargame club in the park district field house on weekends, and the problem was, well, a few people don't like the subject of war, and of course they didn't realize that by this time all the members were playing either Dungeons, Dragons, Chivalry and Sorcery, or Traveler.
Mm-hmm.
And also the park district in particular, the one area, was getting more weekend events. So the club was gradually being pushed into smaller and smaller rooms. And I think at one point they said, next couple of months we need every room. We got so many things going.
Yeah, there used to be a convention called, well, it still exists actually, called Wolfgang. They used to be at a church in Norwich, Illinois. Do you remember that church? Yeah, and so they had a successful convention there for many years in a row, and then they got some new priest in there, and he didn't like it that most of the games were just regular board games. They weren't war games. But the priest saw that some of the games hit stuff with violence or whatever, or you know what I mean. So he didn't want the convention there anymore. But fortunately, they still exist. They go to different venues now. But that's a shame because that was a good venue.
The priest that endorsed it passed on, and the others just didn't understand what was going on.
Oh, okay. Oh, I was told it was because they didn't like the games being based on violence or something like that.
Yeah. But I like the ambiance. You're playing in a church basement.
Yeah. That was actually fun. They had, they'd bring frozen pizzas there and stuff, and you can get like a frozen pizza for like $6 and sit there and eat pizza while you're playing board games. That was fun. Yeah. They'd have tournaments on occasion. Like, I remember one year they had a HeroClix tournament, and I think they've had a Settlers of Catan tournament, all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. So.
But...
yeah, I was thinking history museums. I'm surprised that the Pritzker Military Museum doesn't have a wargaming club.
Wait, I thought HMGS Midwest does something there. Don't they have one convention a year at one of these museums or something? Not a it's like a mini convention with like 20-some people or something.
They did. What's the one in Wheaton? Cantigny? Or?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah, Cantigny.
Because I remember I had a fun time at that one, and I'm surprised they didn't do that more often or make it a regular event.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Jennifer will, because they have a book club, but. How about a wargaming club?
Mm-hmm.
You shouldn't be complaining about violence.
All right, last thing I can recommend is if you play these type of games, find some people who have never played them before, some of your friends, and try and get them into it. Get a real simple game, play it with them, see how they like it. If they like it, then start slowly introducing them to more detailed games. But obviously start them off with whatever your simplest war game is. That's what you want to start a new player with, so they're not overwhelmed.
Yeah. Yeah, because everybody... One of the problems I always had with wargaming is there's a steep learning curve at the beginning, and some people are more easily frustrated. And, you got to understand that when you start in this, first couple of times you're probably going to get stomped on. So be a gracious winner when you do that.
Yeah. And remember, if you're demoing a game, I used to demo games at a game shop, for a game shop that my friend owned. Whenever you demo a game or try to teach someone a game, you want to make sure that they win. I know you like to win, but if you're trying to get someone into the hobby and you set up the simple game, don't play your best. Let them win, because people are more likely to like a game if they win it. So at least the first time, let them win. I mean, there's no shame in it, especially if you get someone new into the hobby. But the worst demo I went to was one, I think it was at Polar Vortex. Some guy had some card game, and I was playing it with the guy who designed the game. And as I was playing, it was kind of Euro-ish. As I was playing, I was getting victory points and stuff. I thought I was doing really well. I was building the things you're supposed to build and stuff. And then at the end of the game, I mean, he just ended up whipping my ass. The reason for that being is the whole game he was just drawing cards and discarding cards. I was like, why is he doing that? So I thought he was losing. But actually, there's some cards in the deck that give you like a lot of victory points. So instead of just building stuff and doing the things you're supposed to do to get victory points, the easiest path to victory is just keep drawing and discarding until you get all those cards. So I mean, that kind of told me the game was terrible. And I didn't want to play it, but
well, it was a Euro game. Remember, Euro games you could come back from behind in the last turn.
that happens quite often, actually.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
most of the time,
eliminated
a lot of Euros, you don't have a clue who's in the lead, and so it's like a big surprise at the end who wins. I've played a lot like that, but you got anything else?
Now, just museums should start taking interest in it. Hopefully, it'd be nice if libraries and park districts, but we can't hope on those guys.
Mm-hmm.
But, and just, introduce it to anyone you know. They might have a slight, if they know you, maybe they have a slight interest.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we'll have a new topic for next week. If you guys have any suggestions for new topics, definitely let us know. Have a good evening.
All right.